I believe what I'm about to read to you is from the 1980s. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it is. Archetypes are created through compounding repetition of focus performed by sentient consciousness. This sentience can be of a universal nature, such as radiant beings cognizing a divine archetype, or human minds coming together with purpose and forethought to create a specific dynamic that becomes animated through the law of attraction. Priests and priestesses throughout the ages have deliberately spun thoughts into advanced thought forms, creating archetypes. So have the modern-day advertising agencies who promote Coca-Cola. There are as many gradients of archetypes as there are worlds within worlds of the mind. The following information is a compilation of transmissions received from Thoth that were prompted by some questions I posed. The dweller on the threshold is a universal principle having specific applications in the Earth's reality. The original ancient concept of the dweller on the threshold is that which arises from the soul at the moment of potential confrontation with its divine counterpart. In other words, the divinity it contains within its Godspark. Thoth states it is potential, for it is the moment the soul recognizes its power to become a mirror for the divine. Such a moment is both sacred and profane, for karmic ties must be met and absolved before the sacred meeting is secured in heaven. In Earth's fractured realm of being, there are lesser versions of the dweller on the threshold experience, where it is not an all-or-nothing dynamic, but still a level of confrontation with a judicial being. This judge is an aspect of the lower self integrating with ancient archetypes inserted into the planetary consciousness, which guardian sacred wisdom. You notice it doesn't say sacred knowledge, but the actual inner wisdom of it. These archetypes are programmed to assure the veracity of the seeker when he or she attempts to bridge the gap into the domain of the holy. Dweller on the threshold archetypes have been specifically created with this attribute in mind as one of their qualities and abilities to retrieve trapped light from the fallen universe. However, in the fractured Earth reality, there are no absolutely pure archetypes now historically known. Tosmulektai was the complete form of the most ancient archetype from beyond this world to enter the Earth reality. In this form, she is an eternal force of balance. Sekhmet, who is an aspect of her greater nature as Tosmulektai, originally carried a great deal of her divine attributes into the Egyptian mythos, but gradually she became seen as a vengeful enforcer of justice who consumed the flesh of her foes. This is not her true role. The archetype, which Thoth calls Tosmulektai, was once a combination of Hathor, Bast, and Sekhmet, among others, yet the culture separated these aspects, and Sekhmet became the strong taskmaster. This developed through fear of insurrection in the temples when Egypt began to become more oriented toward physical wealth and power. A similar dynamic is seen in all fractured archetypes, especially those whom contain dweller on the threshold attributes. Now, I'm going to pause a moment and say, what are fractured archetypes? They can be just a little bit fractured or a lot fractured. So that's a wide range, but it just means disassociated with the true root consciousness that was entered into that archetype in the original form. But to say, that Sekhmet is fractured, that doesn't mean, oh gosh, that's awful. It's up to you to bring her back in your consciousness, in your receipt, in your spiritual ethos and being to her original form. And that can be done. Maybe it won't be for the person sitting next to you, but it will be for you. It depends upon you, because archetypes are based on mental configurations. And some of them are not. Some of them, of course, are angelic, presentations. But those that are configurated from the sense of being of the eternal in the human being, in the human person, that is changeable. Or even if it's a divine archetype, one that is, like an angelic insertion, not coming from a human focus. And because Sekhmet comes from a cosmic sense, a cosmic overview. So even that can become fractured in the connection between that higher form and the person. And you have the ability to change that for yourself. So when you're meditating or calling upon one of these archetypes, you can just say, I call upon the root form of Sekhmet or Isis or whomever, To continue. The Black Madonna is an example of mutation of an original dweller on the threshold archetype. This archetype was Kore, K-O-R-E. She is another goddess archetype that can be traced back to Tosmuluktai. It's not an easy word to say. All dweller of the threshold archetypes of Earth, which carry a feminine charge, find their root in Tosmuluktai, like the first Sekhmet before her later dismantling. Kore originally came close to personifying the pure manifestation of Tosmuluktai as a true universal dweller on the threshold archetype. By the time Kore became clothed as the Black Madonna, she had merged with Isis, who had shapeshifted into Mari, divine mother of the solar king. Yet this virgin queen still contains some powerful components of her original dweller on the threshold dynamic. There were no male dwellers on the threshold until the fall of Mu, or Lemurian, Melchizedek temples. At that time, the priests who had usurped the oracle thrones needed to bend the dweller on the threshold into a form which would accommodate their desires. However, out of the mutation arose powerful and divine archetypes in later periods, like Thoth and Osiris, both whom were made manifest in the physical by human incarnations. And now realize we're speaking of archetypes here. If we step outside the understanding of archetypes with these names, these associations, and in some cases these incarnated presences that were vibrating in the frequency of both the archetype and the higher region of consciousness that they represented, we can then view them in a much broader perspective, outside of the human incarnation, outside of the archetype, as true spiritual beings beyond our comprehension in many ways. The masculine dweller on the threshold archetypes reflect the usurpation of power sources by fallen standards, and thus these male versions are more volatile and demanding in nature. In her own form, Sekhmet became more of a male-patterned figure, even though she officially retained her feminine stature. The dweller on the threshold's primary function is to relay to the beholder her own fear of worthiness to be coupled with the divine. However, there is an independent component represented through the ancient archetype that outpictures the world karmic association demonstrated in microcosmic relief within the individual soul. The soul faces the dweller on the threshold in different phases of initiation as it peels away the many layers of self-denial and fear which so inhibit the incarnating process. It is often aided by Anubis, who is the opener and reconciler of the way. He is also an aspect of Thoth. Anubis's field of cognition demonstrates a grace factor in passage which has been garnered through previous experience by the very soul whom he assists. As the portal of the new Earth Star ascended reality approaches, the dweller on the threshold archetype will move closer to its original source, to that which Tosmalektai represents, yet she will retain her core Kore aspect, also containing components of Isis, Mari, the later archetypes of Earth. Now, I'm speaking a lot about femininity here, but the male archetypes are a prominent and powerful and sacred aspect of this. After all, my main guy is Thoth, and I work with a lot of male archetypes, actually more than I do female ones. They're very powerful beings, so I'm not dismissing them, or neither is Thoth. He's explaining how the process worked in the dualistic system of Earth. And the earliest archetypes were formed for goddesses because it was the divine nature of the earth, of the birthing, properties of everything, that and the nurturing properties that the original humanity was especially focused upon. But then we needed a little more. We needed the masculine directive, the planting of the sword in the ground, the sacred sword, the activation. And that could not have been done in this dualistic world without the male archetype. To continue, the pure, undiluted blending of the universal goddess with the earth goddess will demonstrate the new Earth Star reality and the threshold that humanity must cross to become at one with its true manifest destiny. In this new Earth Star expression, one of her names will be the Sheltering One. Her emblem will be a dove bearing a crown of 13 stars, representing her alignment with the new heaven and earth, containing 13 cycles of completion. As a suggested meditation with the future dweller on the threshold, the Sheltering One, visualize a white dove with wings outstretched, a circlet of 13 stars above its head. See the rounded chest of the dove become increasingly transparent until there is revealed inside a rosy beating heart. Allow your heart feeling to merge with the dove's until the two hearts, yours and that of the dove, beat as one. This is the conclusion of the reading. I'm going to place the Going Forth with the Gods video link in the information box below.